what successful companies are doing with artificial intelligence. Instead of positioning AI as a replacement for human expertise, we reframed it in a better way, which is to be an expertise amplifier.
And it's not, hey, AI is going to come and replace your job. It's no, hey, AI is going to come in and you're actually going to add more value to the company.
The key isn't having the trendiest tool. It's using the right tool for the correct and specific job.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Myth and Reality in AI. I am with John Thomas Foxworthy, your host, and I'm excited to be chatting with you, John, on specifically the implementation and the human factor of AI, but also how teams and managers within companies might be resistant to actually implementing AI due to fear of their job, due to maybe AI not being able to do as well of a job as they believe they could be doing. So in this episode, we're going to be diving into that. And my first question is, based off your experience, why do most employees not trust AI based off what you've seen?
Wow. So this is actually one of the most crucial and often overlooked aspects of artificial intelligence implementation. So let me share a recent example that really brings this to life. I worked at a large insurance company that invested millions into an artificial intelligence system to help claim adjusters make faster, more accurate decisions. And the technology was solid, the data was clean, but 6 months in, they were seeing only 5% adoption. And they wanted to know why. They never addressed what I call the expertise paradox. This is where insurance adjusters with 15, 20, or even 30 years of experience were really not involved. I mean, I couldn't figure out why they were ignoring them. They developed a deep expertise within spotting fraud, understanding complex claims, making judgment calls. These are people in the middle of the night can see things that the regular people could not see. And they were told basically to trust this new artificial intelligence system that they did not understand and they could not question. That was not good. It's just not really a way to deal with the corporate strategy there. So here are two major areas that I kind of focus on, which are called early warning signs, which is the silence pattern and the shadow system. And the silence pattern is when you mention artificial intelligence meetings, the experienced staff, not all of them, basically just go quiet. And then also questions about the artificial intelligence systems are very basic and non-existent. So there's a lot of quiet involved. And people also avoid training sessions. So that's really the silence pattern. The other pattern is the shadow system, where the staff maintains a parallel process for, just in case, because really they're rooting against AI. And they have continued reliance on, let's say, old Excel spreadsheets, or they're creating workarounds to avoid using artificial intelligence. But ultimately, those are the identifications of the problem. So here's how we turn it around. Instead of positioning AI as a replacement for human expertise, we reframed it in a better way, which is to be an expertise amplifier. We created an artificial intelligence advisory board with experienced staff. We built feedback mechanisms where experts could flag artificial intelligence decisions that they disagreed with. So within 3 months, the adoption rate jumped from 5 to 60% because ultimately we gave people agency within the process. They weren't passive recipients of artificial intelligence. They were active participants for artificial intelligence and its development. So you need to have some skin in the game. So what's important here is that most successful organizations understand that artificial intelligence readiness isn't just about technology and data. It's about creating a partnership between human expertise and AI capabilities.
Wow, John. So you're telling me that just the adoption rate increases by giving people more ownership and making them actually feel like they're a part of it. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. You want to have people involved in the process. You want them to be able to express, particularly people with experience, a lot of experience and authority who are subject matter experts, SMEs, to be a part of an advisory board and a committee. That really works because that way they can trickle down their experiences, their criticisms, their appraisals both the positive and the negative to the junior staff. And that's very critical because, a lot of people feel that artificial intelligence is something that's kind of isolated and in a silo. That does not work with almost all companies across the board. It's really the integration between human intelligence and artificial intelligence to get artificial intelligence to the next level.
Got it. That makes a ton of sense. And what would you say what is a step that I could be taking that allows me to get my team on board? What would that conversation maybe look like if I wanted to implement that?
Well, there's a lot of ways to do this. A lot of companies have done this in a lot of ways. Before you actually take any initial steps or even touch anything technical, is to really reach out to your organization. You can do this through a third party, or you can do this within face-to-face and just talk about, hey, what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence? Provide a survey. You're positive, you're negative. What is the emotion or word that you attach to it? Excitement, fear. Can you put that fear between a scale of 0 and 10? Can you put that excitement between 0 and 10? And do that across the board. Do that within accounting, marketing, operations, sales, etc., both business and technology groups, before you even actually get in. And that will give you a gauge of what you're working with and identify any pain points that potentially may occur when you try to begin the process of hey, by the way, we're doing AI.
Got it. That makes a ton of sense. So you're saying get a pulse of it. Once you have a pulse on it, then you can kind of move towards the implementation. What would maybe be a sign that, hey, your company isn't ready to implement AI? It's not ready to scale. And is there scenarios where that is the case?
Yeah, scaling is a kind of a interesting topic. It's very popular. People like to discuss it within certain media channels. I would probably kind of really introduce this, the scaling triangle is what I would kind of introduce first, which is basically the triangle has the 3 points of decisions, infrastructure, and then value. So the first side of the scaling triangle, when you kind of introduce this process, think of it as a journey. You know what the destination is. People are talking about the destination, but how long is the journey? What are the obstacles along with that journey? Length, obstacles, and also, how thin is it? How thick is it? Can you pivot? Those types of questions are not answered from the beginning. But, the more you ask within your employees, the more you understand. But within the scaling triangle in particular, the first side is really clear decision rights. The first side of the triangle, which is who can approve model changes, who owns data quality, who's accountable for results. So that's the first side of the scaling triangle. The second side of the scaling triangle is basically infrastructure flexibility. Start small, but build for growth. Plan for 10x data volume, and also design modular systems that can pivot and that are not rigid. And then the third side of the triangle for scaling is really measurable value steps, which are defining success at each scale level, tracking your return on your investment, ROI, continuously, and then having clear stop and grow criteria for your project. So the pattern that I've kind of seen repeatedly is that successful scaling is about more or less 20% about AI technology, and then 80% is really about governance structure and getting the triangle right and the scaling to make it systematic rather than chaotic. So once you get the governance right, starting from polling first and working your way towards scaling, it can be successful. And that's really kind of a common theme that kind of answering here is that instead of thinking about solutions, about a particular model, think about everything before that.
That makes a ton of sense. And then if I want to scale across different departments, how do I do that without friction involved? And would you recommend focusing on one department, then moving to another department? What would you suggest in that scenario?
Large companies they're complicated. They have many departments. They have departments within departments. That's very much true. So maybe I should kind of give a story with this is that where years back, I worked for a large manufacturing company where the artificial intelligence quality control system worked perfectly in the California plant, but it failed within the Texas facility. So basically, same company, same processes, but supposedly for different reasons that we had to discover why they had different types of outputs. Now, this is something what I call tribal knowledge, where, the tribe in California is different from the tribe in Texas. This also can vary from state to state or even country to country. But it's kind of like where you have two chefs using the same recipe, but you're getting different results because of the individual techniques of those chefs. So what you need to do within this area where you have different departments with different outputs with the same AI product is you need to document the invisible, which is map the unofficial workflows, capture the tribal knowledge. It doesn't matter if you agree with it or disagree with it. Just understand it completely. And then identify the common ground by finding core processes that are truly identical, and then build your artificial intelligence foundation on these. You need to identify key influencers within each department, the key leaders within each department, and then work with them for a common AI goal, which will allow it to kind of trickle down from those leaders. So the most successful scaling projects treat each department like a new implementation. One size rarely fits all, but if you have one foundation, you can support many variations.
Is it up to the department lead to be leading the AI development, or are you hiring a consultant? Are you bringing in a third party? Are you hiring someone full time from the strategic expert matter when it comes to AI? How does that all work together? Because I'm just thinking if I have a sales lead and a marketing lead, these guys got to do their day-to-day jobs. How are they implementing AI and leading that project based off your experience and what you've seen work, as we know that, majority of these projects naturally fail at a 75 to 85% failure rate. So what have you seen the most successful companies implementing?
This is completely natural, what you're describing, and it's quite common. It happens throughout the US and also throughout the world, very much so within my 20 years of experience. I get a lot of interesting stories when I do a lot of executive coaching where people tell me about this tribal knowledge and these differences and divisions within certain companies. And this happens in actually many countries, as they explain to me, even in English, even though they're not speaking English in their country. So it's quite very much a part of human nature. You need to have shared goals. You need to start from the beginning, like, this is where we're going. This is a destination. We have an understanding of the journey. That journey may change. It may pivot. We may have obstacles. But you want to have a committee within artificial intelligence and change management lead that allows people to have skin in the game. So the idea that you're going to allocate all the gains to one or two people is that really does not work. Even if it does work, then you have a lot of people leaving and then it fails afterwards. So it's really a group effort. And that's really where you need leadership and somebody with vision to kind of tell people with different interests that this artificial intelligence product, which spans, let's say, business and technology, is a win-win and will benefit the organization and will contribute to revenue and will lower costs and lower risks, etc. It has to be a collective win.
Got it. That makes a ton of sense. And I think getting everyone on the same page where it is that collective win, and it's not, hey, AI is going to come and replace your job. It's no, hey, AI is going to come in and you're actually going to add more value to the company by what's being implemented. It's such a strategic approach. And I think there's a lot of hype around, oh, AI is going to replace my job, therefore I'm not going to bring it up. What I've seen time and time again, based off of what you're implementing, is that it actually makes you irreplaceable when you can leverage the AI because it creates efficiency, correct?
Absolutely. I always tell people and also companies that artificial intelligence is not going to replace people. People who do not use artificial intelligence will be replaced by people who do use artificial intelligence. So it's an issue of augmentation and not replacement. You want to explain to your organization, whether on the business side or the technology side, that there is a gain function within their career to adopt this technology. And that's very much so. So this a lot of fear mongering that's involved within artificial intelligence is really overblown. We're not really getting mass layoffs this time. I've been involved with this space within 20 years. I've been involved with writing contracts with dozens of companies and Fortune 500 companies where they need to explain, this is how much this department costs in terms of labor. Here are the resources. Here is the cost within that building, etc. I've seen dozens of these contracts, and I'm telling you, it's not Armageddon. It's really a huge benefit to a whole set of people. I do think that people and also companies that refuse to use artificial intelligence, or the ones who fail to adopt it successfully, they don't have artificial intelligence products available that's in use. Or if they have it in use, it's not adopted by users. Those are the ones that are going to have the major layoffs. So the absence of artificial intelligence within a company will cause mass layoffs, not the ones that do have artificial intelligence as a product within their company.
That makes a ton of sense. I'm curious, like AI is such a hype subject right now, right? And there's so many different individuals, subject matter experts, different buzzwords going on. I know one thing I've seen is like these AI agents, right? Where a lot of people are selling, hey, you can replace yourself in the business if you just had AI agents, right? I'm curious though, based off your 20 years of experience in working with these Fortune 500 companies, what actually will deliver results when it comes to implementing AI into your business?
Maybe I should kind of share a story with this, is that there was a CEO I talked to, a chief executive officer last month, where, he basically asked me, should we use large language machines or should we use agentic AI? And I told him that he's asking the wrong question. It's like asking, should I buy a drill or a saw before I know what I'm building? It just doesn't really work that way. So, if you're looking for patterns in historical data, that's predictive analytics. If you need systems to learn and adapt through trial and error, that's agentic AI. If you need to process and generate human-like text, then that's large language machines. So, those are the kind of major themes that I kind of go through with a lot of people with the C-level suite, with chief executive officers and also chief technology officers. So the questions really to ask here is, what decisions need to be automated? What type of data drives these decisions? And what's the cost of getting it wrong? And that's really the three major questions that are really helpful with that. So think of AI more like a business toolkit. Large language machines are like a hammer. Predictive analytics is like a saw. And agentic AI is like a drill. The key isn't having the trendiest tool. It's using the right tool for the correct and specific job.
That makes a ton of sense. And I think breaking it down like that really cuts through the hype and the keywords and everything like that. And making sure that you do have the proper tool for the specific solution that you have and that it is situational. And I think the breakdown of that makes a ton of sense, because at the base foundation here, it's if you have a problem and you implement the wrong tool, you might spend more time fixing the initial problem because you had the wrong tool, right? And so I completely understand and track what you're saying there. I think it's explained in a manner that's very easy to understand and clear. So I kind of want to pivot here to the next steps of implementation on this, right? Let's say that, I have a team member and I've gone over this with him. I've said, hey, I need you to help me, build out this AI model that's going to create this efficiency and it's going to make your life easier. And this team member in particular comes back to me and says, John, I know everyone's talking about AI. It just won't be able to do it as good as I can. How should I handle that conversation? What would you advise me to be able to articulate a clear message back that, cuts to the point, but also gets him on board? And from your experience, is there some people that just won't adopt it? And what do you do in that?
Yeah, it's a matter of are you asking the right question? Where did your knowledge base come from to come up with that question? Because, ultimately, if you want to solve problems, you need to ask the right question. If you're asking the wrong question, it will not address the correct problem. And that's really very common, unfortunately, where people are very solution-based and very answer-based, and they're then trying to find the question. Or they find the solution and they're trying to find the problem. And that's a matter of focusing on understanding your business. And it goes back to what exactly is the business? How does it actually make money? And once you understand that thoroughly, and the main problem with a lot of people is that if you worked in a place for a long time, you have start to begin to have a surface level of understanding of your business. So you need to be motivated to actually do a deep dive. You need to talk to certain people within your business that can explain to you how the business works at a more deeper and mechanical level. And once you actually do that, then you can understand what potential problems there are. And, it's the same thing with me trying to do pizza 10 years ago for the first time. I really didn't understand how flour was made. I didn't understand a lot of things were made. And once I actually understood the mechanics of what goes into making a pizza, then I was able to make a very good one. So it's really a matter of a deep dive and with something called entity resolution. An entity resolution is like entities are nouns or things or people or objects. So once you're actually able to have a deep dive of that, that's really where the first steps are within understanding machine learning and artificial intelligence. It sounds very counterintuitive. I know the marketing within people are thinking they see this particular model, agentic AI, large language machines, generative artificial intelligence, etc. And these are all solutions, but ultimately you want to ignore that. You want to ignore that marketing and really focus on the basics of what you have in your own company, and then worry about the solutions later. And that's where I see with my 20 years of experience what successful companies are doing with artificial intelligence. They're focusing on the basics, understanding at a very deep level, and then eventually getting to the point where they have to find a solution, which is steps 7, 8, or 9 further along the road.
That makes a ton of sense. And as we're coming to a close here, I'm curious, last question would be, how do I take progress on this today, tomorrow, right? A lot of this is handling conversations and, dealing with people and getting them on board. But if I'm looking to get moving as soon as tomorrow, and I feel like I should be implementing this, I already feel behind. What would you recommend I do to stay in the loop and be making progress?
Step 1 is to educate yourself. And when you do that, you need to investigate the backgrounds of the people who are educating you. What did they study and when? Do they have artificial intelligence on the transcripts? Have they implemented artificial intelligence in the real world or not? Or are they involved in marketing, or are they involved in something in business development? Are they non-technical people? And that's ultimately, you want to find people that have done the things that you want to do. You want not to learn from people who are in the audience when you're in the audience. You want to learn from someone who's on the stage, who's actually done the work that you want to do. And there's a very small set of people from that you want to learn from. So that's why we provide this within executive coaching at the Global Institute of Data Science, because there's a lot of it's not a standardized discipline within artificial intelligence. There's a small set of practitioners, particularly ones who've done this for 10, 20, 30 years. There's not many of us. And the ones who've actually been in the trenches, who've learned from their past mistakes, and who's willing to take these mistakes and tell, a story to someone like you, to certain people, to kind of mentor them and coach them to actually develop an artificial intelligence product that you can actually put into production and have as a viable product, and actually has a good adoption rates, and to maximize revenue or minimize cost. That'd be my first approach. You really need to educate yourself in a big way.
Awesome. That makes a ton of sense. Very actionable. Where can the listeners/viewers find you? Where's the best place to get connected with you? What social channels should they reach out to you on?
Sure. You can reach me at on our YouTube channel here. You can subscribe. On top of that, our website is gids.co. On top of that, I'm also on LinkedIn with John Thomas Foxworthy at the Global Institute of Data Science. I post there regularly. You can follow me there. I've got thousands and thousands of followers. There's that. And you can also send me an email on our links that are associated with those channels. And maybe we can meet together. We can discuss artificial intelligence from ideation all the way to implementation. And, in some cases, sometimes it's not viable to start with AI, but most cases, it is something you want to leverage because it is the future.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Looking forward to the next episode, and we'll see you guys then.